before keeping you informed that in this hour, we're going to have a sit down with Muhabi Lungu, who is in the studio. So we are about to get talking. We do understand that the 2026 general elections are only 9 days away. So promises are still intensified. Criticism of the other parties still highly intensified. And we're going to talk about all that with Mr. Muhabi Lungu right here in the studio, who is So Muhabi Lungu is joining us, and he's the Deputy Presidential Campaign Coordinator for Lusaka under the Tonse Pamosi Alliance. Mr. Lungu, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I'm good. I think the last time I did an interview with you, I was like, do I call you Honorable Muhabi Lungu? Do we just say Mr. Lungu? Which one? Are we still with just Mr. Lungu?
Lungu is just fine for me. I don't like titles.
No titles.
I think, because I think we are drunk on titles in this country.
I think we did have a conversation about that where you did mention how you feel like, once a title is placed on someone, they kind of stop thinking about themselves. It's just about the title.
It's about the title.
Okay. I think today's conversation is going to be pretty intense and straightforward because we want to talk about all things all round. Now, I'll go straight to the point. I want to do a little bit of small talk here, but we'll go straight to the point for the listeners. So, you recently described President Hakainde Hichilema as one of the worst president, or the worst performing president since Zambia got independence. So, why do you have those particular views as him?
Well, look, when you are assessing someone for a job, a job interview, you have a criteria of what you are looking for. For whatever job it is, whether it is journalism, whether it is, I've attended so many interviews in my life because I've had many jobs. So people fire questions, and then at some once you get the job, you are given your key performance indicators. What is expected of you, and when you are evaluated at the end of the year, you fill in this thing. There are always issues which you look at. Now, for the presidency, one of the most important criteria that you use to assess the presidency is whether there are unifiers. Okay, it's really important for a president, especially for countries such as Zambia, who are only 62 years in terms of the establishment of what we call the national state. And that is in recognition of the fact that, look, 100 years ago, and 100 years is not far, okay? It looks far. 100 years ago, there was no such thing as Zambia. And everybody saw themselves in their own respective ethnic groups. So when we come together as a nation, it's a beginning for us. And it is a composition of so many other ethnic groups. And the first generation of leaders, the Kaundas and the Kapwepes and so on, understood that unless you consolidate and everyone feels that they are part of the whole, that development is very difficult to actually for it to take place. So you need to feel that you're all Americans. You need to feel that you're all British. You need to feel that you're all Zambians, and that you are all part of the stakeholders of the country named Zambia. And that is why we came up with the motto, One Zambia, One Nation. And that has been a defining ethos of what we are as Zambians, that although we are many, many groupings in terms of ethnicities, but we all come together to make one nation. And that's what identified us. Now, if a head of state not only fails to promote that idea of oneness in the country, but even goes the other side and starts to use our own differences as a basis of division, so that in that division, he can find himself to be the supreme person who's been worshipped, then you have committed what I would say a cardinal sin, okay? A very serious breach of trying to kill the national state. And that is what I think Hakainde has been trying to do for the last 5 years. Yeah, he's so preoccupied with retaining power that he has unashamedly used ethnicity as a basis in which his ethnic group can see themselves as people who have been given the opportunity not only to govern but to eat, and that all other people want to criticize him on the basis of his own inequities in terms of governance, then he takes it, oh, I'm not wanted because I am this. Okay? And he has been consistently doing that for the last 5 years.
Could it be that he's just expressing his emotions? I think politicians are still people and they do have an emotional side. Could it be him just expressing his
Well,
emotions?
look, if in every family, in every family, I come from a family of 6. I'm the firstborn, okay? And I know that my dad and my mom must have favorites in the family. But if a parent begins to show the children that one is my favorite, that one is not my favorite, that one I don't like it, what you create in a family is disunity. And many years when you have gone, those seeds that you have sown remain for the children that are yours, and they begin to quarrel and fight, and the family become dysfunctional. Okay, and I think that he's the only one of the 7 presidents that have governed who has done this. I have always expressed, I have reviewed this. I think maybe last time I was with you, I may have shared this. Is my own examples with KK, the first president of this republic. I worked for him for 7 years, 5 of which I was his special assistant. And KK was known to be a person who was born from Northern Province, and everybody knew that. From purposes of growing and so on, he was from Northern Province. But everybody in Zambia at least knew that his parents were from Malawi, and that if you saw the names of his children, whether it is Wezi, Tirienge, and whatever, that they were Tumbukas, or what you would call, they were actually Tumbukas, or what you would call Tongas from Malawi, which is basically the same, they were the Hengas. Yet, I didn't know that Kaunda actually knew how to speak Tumbuka. I didn't know. And I can tell you that majority of those who grew up under his system probably don't know that he knew how to speak the language very well. He hid it. Not because he was ashamed of it, but he understood what the political dynamics were in this country about ethnicity and about where people would place him and how people would assess him in terms of how he structures his governance. And I only discovered, I think, in the 7th year that he was very versatile in the language. Very versatile. Now, in the olden days, the old man was very careful with just languages. And as I said, languages are a part of us. But he was very careful because he wanted every Zambian to feel that they should not be judged by the language they speak, by the names they speak, that it was very important to be cohesive. Our current president has been very careless on the other side, both with his language, you would see that KK or even Chilua or Manawasa, they would go to Northern Province and so on. The mode of communication to the citizens primarily would be the national language, English. They would go veer into maybe Bemba or whatever and so on. Okay? Same thing with Arabic. He would go to Eastern Province and the mode of communication to the voters and to the people would basically be in English. He would veer in his Nyanja, okay? But was very conscious that when I am on a national stage, I am speaking to the whole country. What HHS does, when he's in the Southern Province, it is just Tonga. Now, I am not saying that is a bad thing in terms of trying to prove who you are from an ethnic point of view or your pride and so on. But what it does to the rest of the people is they begin to see a person who is very divisive and exclusive of them. And he has done that. As I said, he's done it consistently. So I think that rather than belabor this point, one of the reasons I think that he is the worst president of all the 7 is I think that he has been the most divisive. Okay. And a country cannot grow if it is divided. You can have all the economic fundamentals correctly, but if people feel that they do not sit at the table, then it means nothing to them.
Could it be that he's just tailoring messages to suit a particular demographic? I mean, different provinces have different, challenges and different. I mean, Lusaka had Kadarism back in the Patriotic Front, so it was easier for them to come and talk about Kadarism. And maybe him talking to the people from the Western province like that is because they may feel excluded, and it's him trying to make them feel like they are part of Zambia now that he's come into power. Could it be maybe just tailoring of messages to suit specific demographics?
I do not think so, because in everything that we do, there has to be a red line. Where am I prepared to cross? Okay, and where am I not prepared to cross? And so, um, especially when you are the head of a republic, you have to be able to clearly define where you should not be able to cross. So it's even like joking. I can see you here, and I say, oh, this is a attractive young lady, and I can joke with you here about certain aspects, and we can laugh about it even on radio. But I also have to know that on radio I cannot exceed this line, because then it either becomes vulgar or it becomes unacceptable, whatever, or it becomes harassment. So you can't have a system which doesn't have any boundaries. And in this regard that we are saying now, the truth of the matter is that millions of Zambians feel that our president excludes them from their perspective. And it is there in popular culture. They say it, that he'll go to one region, say something else. We are one Zambia, one nation, when he goes to the other region. When he goes to the region, then you start saying they. Okay? Now, that, as I said, that is very divisive. And for me, I've been very strong and very unashamed to discuss this matter. Partly because the government itself has been wanting to criminalize in discussing who we are. Okay? So then it becomes a criminal offense for the rest of us to discuss it. And as you are saying, it becomes okay for him to discuss it and to use it as a basis for his campaign. I can do it, you can do it. If I do it, well, I'm campaigning. If you do it, it's hate speech.
Okay.
Yeah, that is very bad.
It's Capital FM 99.7, and we are with Mr. Muhabi Lungu in the studio. So you definitely can add your voice, comment, and contributions to this particular conversation around. And you can also follow us live on Facebook, on Smart Eagles, as well as Capital FM. Now, you've talked about him as a person, as the president.
Who is divisive.
And you talked about him bringing disunity. Now, let's talk about his performance.
Okay, before we go to his performance, let me just say one last thing, just to cement what I was saying. The danger of what I was saying is not only in the issue of being divisive, it is also in the issue that it corrodes democracy, okay? Because if you remember, there was a time when we were all fighting against him regarding the Constitution, okay? And we were disagreeing with him about Bill 7 and other issues that were contained in Bill 7. And his reaction to many of us was that the only reason why we had taken a position or a stand against Bill 7 in this regard were not because of the content of Bill 7, is because we hated him. And that we hated him not for any other reason, but because he was from somewhere. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So even exercising the normal functions of an opposition to try and be critical of government so that they can come to the center, then become also an issue of criminalization.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I thought that it was very dangerous. So anyway,
okay.
I hope I haven't disturbed you.
No, you haven't disturbed us from a second. I think now we can just talk about the Zambian government at large and the things that they have implemented. You have criticized the president as a person. Now let's talk about his performance. What are some of the economic aspects? Because you've said judging him from the economic side, you have said he hasn't performed as well. So what are some of the issues? Other people would say, look, debt restructuring is part of the thing, free education. And recently they've even talked about the increasing of meal allowances, the, bringing in teachers, bringing in, healthcare workers. So what aspects do you feel like the UPND government at large has completely failed in?
Okay. Okay, let me put it this way. The PF administration under Edgar Lungu was in office for 7 years. Okay? 7. Well, in fact, not even 7. It was 6 years, some months, because he took over, just remember, and so on. So 6 years, some months. The current administration has been in office for 5 years. Okay? The difference in terms of years between the two is maybe 15 months. But if you look and go on the ground and looked at the amount of infrastructural development, there is no comparison in terms of bridges, in terms of schools, in terms of health posts, in terms of roads. There's absolutely no comparison. One group for 6 months something achieved so much in terms of infrastructure. Now, for an economy that is underdeveloped, the first thing that you need to do is lay the foundation and the basis upon which other things will come through. And any economist with their source will tell you that one of the most important issues in that regard is infrastructure. Okay? The UPND government has virtually had no infrastructure developed in almost their whole tenure of office. I think the things that they have launched, it sounds funny, but it's true. We've seen the launching of toilets, of toilets which are even incomplete. But in terms of major projects, very little. There's been one here and there. So that is one defining issue. But let me go again to how you assess anyone who has a job. And from a political point of view, one of the reasons in which you assess a person is what they said they would take. The undertakings they made to you as the voters as the issues that we would take. Now, number one on that list was cost of living. That was the number one promise which they made. It wasn't about free education. Okay? It wasn't about debt restructuring. It was about cost of living. And the reason is that many voters make their determination on who should govern them on the basis of how their lived experiences will be on a day-to-day life. And what affects them is just the cost of general day-to-day living. What is the cost of minimum? What is the cost of transport to get to work? What is the cost of your rentals? For those who don't have houses, and all of those issues are affected by facilitators like fuel and foreign exchange and so on. And he said that within a very short specified time he will be able to deal with that. And on that score, he has lamentably failed, because our cost of living 5 years down the line is much, much higher than it was 5 years ago. So what matters most to the voters, in as far as my day-to-day living has been affected adversely instead of positively as he undertook. And that is one of the reasons why you see that so many people have said, look, we're not going to go that way because I was promised this and I didn't receive it. So that is one. Let us go to debt restructuring, which you raised. Now, look, the people of Zambia, by the time we get to 2021, itemize a number of issues which they think the PF were doing wrong. And the most important of that, from their perspective, was actually not debt restructuring. One of the most important of that was the issue you raised regarding cadres, which I will get to. Sorry, next. But let me talk about debt restructuring. Yes, I can give him a tick, or a quenu, as they say, on the fact that they were able to manage to restructure the debt. However, I don't think that shouting on a mountaintop saying you have achieved debt restructuring is the most important issue that any government can do. Because even the PF, had they won, would have achieved debt restructuring. It is not in the interest of lenders anywhere else in the world, particularly commercial lenders, for them to forego the capacity of the country to actually be able to be put on a scheme in which they can pay back some of their money. So if you look at debt crisis throughout the world, even in the modern age, starting with the default of Argentina in 1992, each country that has found itself in difficulties regarding both bilateral debt, multilateral debt, and even commercial debt, that there has always been a methodology and a framework which has been put in by the international community to be able to get that country to have its debt restructured so that in the long term it can pay back some of their loans. Okay, so this was the case in 2005. You may both be young to, but I'm sure you remember. We had an initiative called HIPIC.
Yes.
I used to work at the Ministry of Finance at the time. And the countries that were forgiven in Africa of their HIPC were 18 of them. Sometimes we celebrate of how great we are. Sometimes as people who are Zambians and technocrats, we would like to give the impression that, oh, HIPC and us acceding to the HIPC and succeeding was because we were very great as Manawasa's administration. Yeah, that is partly true. But there were 18 other countries, including Malawi and Tanzania and others, who all of them were recipient and graduated from the HIPC, and they had their debt cancelled, and then we structured it in such a way that as you get additional loans, that you are paying back some of that money. Okay. So the point I'm making is to tout success on an issues which would have been resolved regardless anyway is being a little bit cheap. Okay, it's a little bit being cheap. So yes, it would have been achieved anyway. That is not to deny them that they did it, but I think that the previous government would have done.
So you're saying that if the Patriotic Front was re-elected, they would have restructured the debt. Then why weren't some of the things implemented before the debt reached that particular point?
In fact, if you recall that the process of acceding to debt restructuring was started during the PF. It wasn't started by the UPND. By the UPND. It wasn't. It was started when Mtati, who is now minister within the UPND, was minister of finance. And as I said, that the opportunities, of course, for those who are owed money is to try and see whether they can deal with somebody new who they think will be a lot more responsible. On that basis, I can agree with you that one of the reasons that some of the donors hoped and planned and wished that the UPND comes in is because in their mind they were convinced that the gentleman who was coming in next would be a little bit more responsible with managing economic affairs. Okay? Now, you know, we're still talking about economic management. One of the reasons that I think that the PF may not have been as prudent as they should have been, and there I say it openly, although they're not the same people that we're dealing with, okay? But we're
going to get there.
We are going to get there, yes. Because you've asked me a historical question. I think that one of the reasons why the PF were not as prudent as they should have been is because they found an economy which was in very good health and had savings and had some money and had a very good credit rating. Okay, so it is like you taking over a company which is in the black, as they say, not in the red. In a situation like that, what you may want to do is use the resources you have found in order to grow the company, because there are resources there. And you say, oh, there's all of these. And then you say, well, what do we need? Oh, we need bridges, we need this, and we need that. And you begin to spend some of the money which is in the bank for the companies. And because your credit rating is also good, you say, oh, maybe we should go to the open market. And then, as I said, our credit rating in 2011 was very good. You know, they went and borrowed money. And I think that sometimes when you have easier access to resources and then you've been given, sometimes you are not as prudent as you should be in ensuring that your expenditures are good. So if I am a careless person and I'm impressed by Esther, I might, to try and entice Esther, I might go buy a ring.
But then now, here's my question. Could we say maybe that's what has been the challenge for the UPND? Maybe they haven't done the road infrastructure that you're comparing towards the PF because they found the economy in a bad state. Could that be where they're starting from?
It could be one of the reasons, yes. But if you recall, that at a press conference I think it was at the end of 2022, or I think it was at the end of 2022. By that point, they had managed to restructure the debt. Okay? Now, what that meant, so restructuring of the debt, is that where there was a big chunk of money, okay, in part of the PF administration, which was being taken from the treasury to pay and service the debt, okay, they now had that amount of money which they didn't have to pay. Okay, now, the PF suspended payment of debt in 2021, in the last year of their administrations. So for the 3-4 years prior to that, in fact, for all of the Lungu's tenure, They were already paying the debt. Now, that chunk of money, which was after the restructuring, was now kept by the Zambian government. And that amount of money should have actually been used to finance some of the infrastructure. If you look at, I actually have the figures at home, but if you look at the size of the budget between 2021 and last year's budget, the budget in dollar terms of this administration for the last 2 years was almost double that of the PF. Yet, you have to ask him, how was that money used in terms of infrastructure and other things? And you can't find an explanation, okay? Given the fact, one, they were not paying the debt, and secondly, because the economy has grown, not by the numbers which they touted to grow it, and not because of their great capacity to manage it, but because the years 2020 and 2021, the Zambian economy collapsed. And one of the reasons why the Zambian economy collapsed in those 2 years, well, in fact, I can take it to 2019, 2020, and 2021, was because of what is happening in the rest of the world vis-a-vis COVID. So all of the economies in the world, including the strongest economies in Europe, Germany, England, and the United States, all collapsed. Okay? So in terms of growth, they went south. After we managed to overcome COVID, as we go to 2022, 2023, the whole global economy begins to recover. And some of the main drivers of that global recovery was China, the United States, and Germany, particularly the United States. So that injects a growth hormone in the world economy. So it begins to move forward. And Zambia is one of them. So, but the revenue that is collected from that growth doesn't filter to the economy. And that is why majority of Zambians says, look, there was money when those guys were there. Nowadays, it looks like there's no money.
Okay. I think before we start opening the phone lines to phone calls, let's talk about Honorable Brian Mundubile and Makebi Zulu. I think we focused a lot on the other side.
Yes, that is right.
Yeah, let's get to this side. What are some of the things you will plan to do differently if you're voted into power? Because you've talked about the cost of living still being high and other and infrastructure development. What are some of the things that if you're voted into power come after the general elections, what are some of the things that you are planning to do differently as a government?
Yeah, so first of all, before I go into some of the things that are being planned to be done, let me do exactly what I did when we were talking about HH. The first important thing about governance is the character of the person who will be head of the government. So you asked me when we started over about the character of HH and why I said he was a bad president, and I talked about his character and some of the things he was doing in order to create this unity within the country. So equally for Brian Mundubile, as a person who is now going to govern, I can also first look at his character, okay, and use it as a basis upon which I think that he will govern the country well. So, excuse me, I'm recovering from a flu. There are two aspects to him. There is an aspect to do with just professionalism, okay, and his qualification. And there is also an aspect to do with his own character. And if you look at qualifications, here is an individual who is who is a chartered accountant. And usually chartered accountants, I'm sure you know, are quite smart. They're not down. Maybe even smarter than me. Probably smarter than me. Okay, as a chartered accountant. He's a master's holder in law. Okay? And there are some people who say, oh, it is very hard if you're an educated person to support Brian. I've heard that because apparently he was alleged to have said something which...
To give promises that don't feel attainable.
That's that is right. Yes. So I have said, look, here is a person who clearly from academic qualification is a person who's adept and is very smart. For you to say he's probably smarter than the majority of some of the people who are saying it's very hard to support him in terms of just who he is. So I think it's very important for people to see this man not as a bumbler or as a person who's uneducated, unsophisticated, because it's not true, because he's got the credentials to that. Then you go to the second thing. You know, the best way in which we can know that Paul there is worth his salt is if time and time you, me, and the gentleman sitting there always give him the capacity to lead us. When we are going to the market or we are going to whatever, we always say, oh, Paul, why don't you do this? Because we recognize that Paul maybe has a gift which the rest of us don't have. So Brian Munduwire, during the time that he was in Parliament, he was made Chief Whip. He was made leader of the opposition in the House. He was subsequently elected as the leader of the PF. And then all of us have come around him to make him the person who we think should be able to lead us. Now, we are all not idiots. I certainly am not an idiot. And I also certainly know a lot of other people within the group of Brian Munduwire who are president in the own republic, who have been successful in their own right, and they've all said, let us support this guy. So by that virtue alone, I to give the public the confidence that the person who we are putting in front as a person who should govern it is not a kapunjunju, as other people are trying to portray it. He's someone with some substance. So now let me go to the character. Not only have I talked about the character of HH regarding him being divisive, but I also genuinely feel that HH is not a very forgiving person. That once you injure him, he does not forget. You won't forget Gary, you won't forget. He mentions it. Okay? Or if a young lady by the name of, what's her name? Iris crosses you, he will go on a podium no matter how small you are and talk about. He's not very forgiving. He seems to have a thirst for revenge. Okay? And I can go on at several areas and I've assessed his character. The other part of our president, which I think is quite divisive, is the fact that he's very arrogant. And again, arrogance is not an insult. Because some people, no, arrogant means that you think so highly of yourself and you think that nobody else around the table that is sitting here is as intelligent as you or is as brave as you. So what happens is that you don't tend to listen to other people's advice. It's about you. So if you contrast with Munduwire, you will find that Munduwire doesn't exude arrogance. He's very consultative. He sits with colleagues. We have been able to sit with him and discuss ideas with him, and he's receptive to other people's ideas. So he's not talking to you, he's listening to you. That is a very important part and a trait of a character of a leader. Okay. I think just to cut you off, I'm so sorry because of time. I think just time. Okay. I think just to put it away from the character of the person, maybe just the policies that the person has. Let me just go. Let me now go to the policy. Yes. What you do different in government. Now, I have brought here one of the accusations that the opposition has been saying. Well, not the opposition. Well, the opposition meaning the government to us. Has been that Brian Munduwire and his running mate Muhabi Lungu have just been drawing things from the air and just making all sorts of wild promises, okay? Which is not true. Because here I have some manifesto, and I've been going through this. This is a manifesto of the Tonse Alliance before it amalgamated with others, okay? And it's quite details about what it is they're doing. Here is a manifesto of the Pamosi Alliance before the amalgamation, and they've been quite detailed about what they were doing. I come from the Zambia we want, and here is our manifesto. There is another manifesto of another alliance member, and this is from under the People's Party. This is Wakopland. I have been part of a team of people who came together to look at all of the manifestos of the alliances and come together with a document which was refined and borrowed the best ideas from each of each. And that document is now ready. Now, before Munduwire went out on this, I think it was on the third leg of his campaign, we sat down with him as technocrats who have been in government, former permanent and so, and discussed the ideas of amalgamation and also largely from this, because many of the ideas were the same about what it is that we're going to do. And he was in agreement with those and so on. And some of the ideas that he has been expressing on the road were as a result of that. So I thought that was very important. Okay. So what are those? Number one, to do with the economy. The first thing that the Munduwire ticket has been very clear about, that our preoccupation will be ensuring that the economy is primarily dominated, governed, owned by Zambian people over a longer period of time. That our concentration will not be to just push for foreign direct investment and foreign ownership at the expense of the people that are here. We want to create an industrial economy that is linked to the factors of production being owned by Zambian people, of all colors, of all gender, of all ethnicities. You cannot have a country grow and effectively distribute the income that it grows if the economy is dominated by foreign concerns. Nobody does that. Not in America, not in England, not in Australia.
Do you think that would chase some foreign investors away for saying
No,
we're going
no.
to primarily have...
You don't have to chase them. You have to come up with a mix which is beneficial to both domestic investors as well as foreign investors. What we think the UPND government has been very good at is creating an environment where the benefits largely accrue to foreign direct investment. And that is why some foreign companies can even back them, okay, in order for them to win, because that is what they believe is the government that is friendly to them. That is why there can be fiscal policy regarding taxation in which the government gives rebates to big mining houses at the expense of collecting revenue, which might be helpful for the Zambians. So the first difference between the Mundwile ticket and the UPND ticket is that we will concentrate on trying to grow and industrialize an economy from the perspective of ensuring that, as I said, that the factors of productions are held by Zambian people.
Okay.
Now that requires a number of issues. It's complicated, but okay. So that is one.
Yeah,
number two.
Number two.
I can give three. Yeah.
I think you can give us two, but then I think a question I want to ask you is how is the UPND government, I mean the Brian Mundubile government, planning to work with foreign people? Because we have seen that some people have come out and raised speculation that the UPND and the foreign people, specifically Americans, might be having friction there. How will you come in to ensure that as Zambia and foreign countries, you're working together to bring development for the Zambian people?
If you look at the manifesto, it will tell you that the policy, foreign policy that we will take will be similar to the foreign policy that was taken in the first administration of the Zambian government, and which has been more uniformed by all governments except this one, and that is non-alignment. That the economic policies of the Mundubile government will be non-aligned to any sphere of the globe. So it will not say we're going to take all the positions which the United States takes. It will not say, we will automatically take all the positions which the China takes, or that we will definitely take the European position. The positions that we have put in almost all of these was that we will take a non-aligned policy which will be determined by our own national interest vis-a-vis economic development. Okay, so that is very fundamental. Our colleagues, for example, took a position on Ukraine and, if you remember, on Ukraine, on Russia, without duly assessing what the pros and cons of the positions they were taking. I was at the UN at the time when the war broke out in 2022, in February 2022, and I was chargé d'affaires at the United States. We had advised government to take a particular position, which was in conformity with the SADC region and with the African Union. Our government took a position which was different from majority of countries from the SADC region as well as the African Union, on the basis that at that time they had made a decision that they would be aligned to one particular order. And we think that that is wrong. And we've made it clear that we think that that is wrong, that we should not take position on the basis of either bribes us with foreign aid or whatever. We will take principled decision. And this country has been very strong in the past by taking principled decision. That is why the ANC, Frelimo, ZANU-PF, all were here. Because we took decisions which were based on what our conviction was. The same will happen now. So that is foreign policy. But let me just deal also with governance, okay? Because it's very important. We've talked with what Mundubile would do regarding economics. And then you asked me about foreign policy, and that is the answer that I've given you. But one of the most important aspects of a country moving forward It's not even economics. That's why earlier on I talked about the divisiveness of my president. Okay, I hope he won't be my president in another 2 weeks. But that is people and God's will. Is how you govern yourself. Before economics comes governance. One of the reasons many African countries are poor is because it is not because they lack the resources to be wealthy. It is because they lack the structures of governance in order to create the basis upon which the economy can grow. Now, one of the most difficult problems we've been facing in this country, particularly since 1991, when all of the liberation wars in the region had gone and all the countries were independent, now we are making a shift from politics to economy, is that we have not been able to achieve and have a constitution which is consonant to what a democratic system should be. Okay? And so we have undertaken again, Brian Munduvira has undertaken again, to ensure that we have a new constitution. Not to drag it out until we get to the next election, but we have a new constitution, which will be consultative and not be driven by Brian Munduvira and Muhabi Lungu, but will be driven by the general public in terms of trying to take all of the issues which we've been discussing over the last 30 years to ensure we've got a fourth republic. So that is issues of governance.
All right. We're still talking to the Tonsa Pamosi Alliance Deputy Presidential Campaign Coordinator, Mr. Muhabi Lungu, in studio with us. Now, you've highlighted more on what we obviously should expect, and just also to touch on the issue of unity. We've seen broad daylight, attacks, activity to do with so many things that are not in place. But let's highlight more on the Tonsi Alliance ensuring the nation of unity. What would you say about that?
Yeah, and it is a very strong point. And Brian Munduvira has been very strong that we will build a country which everybody feels that they are a part. Okay? And that there is also equity, that in terms of even considering people for employment, considering people for appointments and so on, that it will be about one Zambia, one nation. Okay? And in regard to the question which I think she wanted to ask but didn't ask, he has apologized about some of the negative sides of the PF. The cadreism, the unbridled power structure which is taken by groups within an organization, and even for the corruption. He has said, for example, that we will have zero tolerance to corruption, and that when a report has been written, at the same time that it goes to the president, it will go to parliament as well. So that whoever has been itemized as a corrupt minister or corrupt whatever, the president will know at the same time that Parliament will know. So the president cannot say, we cannot review the names because they are still in investigation. That is wrong. In the history of this country, people who have done wrong things should always be exposed. That's the only way you fight corruption. But he's been very strong, as I said, on unity and to make sure that he will not be a vengeful person. He's even said that we will not be preoccupied with chasing whatever HH has done. And some people have said, no, but you can't say that. Suppose he's done something. He's even said that we will give him all the respect that is required. And even though President HH has called them boys and criminals and pompoys, you have seen that their way they've responded to him has been not pound per pound disrespect. They have disrespected the president. They have respected the president and have given him his due. And that again goes to character. What is the character of an individual? If an individual believes that it is better to promote unity than division, then you know that even in their day-to-day governance, they will promote that unity.
All right, so 9 days to election day, and obviously there is a number of undecided voters.
Yeah.
Convincingly, why would you let the undecided voters vote vote for the UPND?
Look,
vote for the Tonsi Alliance over the UPND, sorry to say.
Well, because of a number of issues. Number one, the areas of assessment for which many of us have said the UPND have not done well have not changed in the last 10 weeks of the campaign. Okay? So that is one. They have failed to achieve what they undertook to achieve. That is number one. Number two, I think that we have successfully convinced majority of people, many of whom were undecided, that of all the candidates that were on the ballot, and there were 14 of them, that Munduvile is the main contender. So some of the people on the ballot, if I ask you to name all of them, you probably will not be able to name it. I think even Esther will not be able to name them. And we're just 9 days away from the campaign, and some of those who are on the ballot, their running mates have jumped ship, have assessed them, and have endorsed Brian Munduvile. I think 3 of them, of their running mates. Now you can imagine, whether it is legal, whether they are still on the ballot or not, you can imagine if someone has been working with me as my vice president in a company, decides that I'm not worthy, and then decides to endorse somebody else. It is a vote of no confidence on you as a candidate, but also a vote of confidence on the candidate in which they've... And 3 of them have said, this is the guy to support.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, why do you vote for him? Because I think he's competent. This fight is between the 2 of them. And I hope that people will vote for Brian Munduvile because I think that he's got the temperament, he's got the character, and he's got the experience to govern.
Okay, so we're going to take one caller before we close off the interview. Good morning, yes, you to Capital FM.
Esther, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, my brother, the other brother, good morning.
We're fine. How are you, sir?
Your name and where you're calling us from?
Muhabi Lungu, good morning.
Good morning. I know this voice.
Yes, the Honorable himself.
Okay, Honorable Mukosa, what's your question, comment, or contribution for us today?
I just want to remind Muhabi Lungu that Zambians, they know where they are coming from. They know where they are, and they know what they want. When you say the government has been giving foreign investors tax holidays, every government world over, as long as there is a certain amount of investment that you make, you'll be given incentives. That's how it works. Even in America, even in China, even PF did that. Even MMD, Kaunda, UNIP did that. So don't lie to the people that what is happening under UPND is a new thing. Nothing at all. When you talk about working on economy, there is no explanation that we have given that will make the lives of the Zambian people better under the Munduviles. We can only reflect on how they govern us when we give them the opportunity. That's why even yesterday he failed to answer the questions about how they governed and how they intend to govern when he was asked by Jonah on BBC. I think you watched that.
I watched it, yes.
Yes. So for me, my brother, there is no plans that you have which are better and different from what is prevailing today. There's nothing that we have said here. We were just been ravishing the president, making him black. The president who is sharing the national cake equally. Division, when you talk about dividing the nation, it starts with the way you develop your country, the way you share the nation. We had Munduvira going to northwestern province, and he was telling people there that because here, that's where copper and everything is coming from. So your province must be different, must be more developed than others. Do you govern a country like that? When you know that a national cake is shared equally regardless of where it is coming from. I think Munduvire in this election is the disaster, and he is just that popularity out here. Some people are doing bad things.
Thank you, Honorable Mukosa. Thank you.
They can come back. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll take another caller.
I know Mr. Mukosa very well.
Okay.
Hello, good morning. You're through to the Capital Breakfast.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Morning. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yes. Hello?
Yes, your name and where you're calling us from?
Yeah, this is Mr. Amanda calling you within Lusaka.
Okay, Mr. Amanda, under 1 minute, your question, comment, or contribution.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to encourage my man there, Muhabi Lungu. What you have said, it is true. To be realistic, UPND has completely failed this nation. As he has said, This president is arrogant. He doesn't heed to the advice of anyone. So that's why leadership like that, you become a failure. Because as a leader, this one is a boss. He's not a leader. No, he's a boss. A boss, a manager, or a managing is what, yes.
All right.
But not a leader who is ruling the nation. That is impossible. Look into this. We have been having load shedding for 4 years. 4 years. Maybe he comes in after he has seen that election is near. That's when he brings electricity. That's a failure on this one. He has failed completely.
Okay.
So,
in conclusion.
In conclusion, Muhabi and our president, let's continue with the same spirit. Let's continue even donating to them. Let's continue to do so. Thank you so much.
We'll take one more caller and then you can address, yes.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm very fine. How are you?
We are fine, thank you, sir. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yes, you are. This is Brother Namanda calling you from Ruano Valley.
All right, Brother Namanda. We are with the Tonse Pamosi Alliance Deputy Presidential Campaign Coordinator. Kindly speak to him.
Good morning, comrade there.
Good morning, Namanda.
Yes, I think, comrade Muhabi Lungu, you need to be very, very sincere in the way you debate matters. You are the very people who made the PF to lose terribly because of your lies. Sometimes being sincere does not harm. You are saying UPND has done nothing to point at. Surely, even free education, it is nothing to point at. Even a social cash transfer, you left it at 400 kwacha. How much is it today? It is nothing to point at. But President waona kuti bantu asauka, tiwaonjezereko ka social cash transfer kuti apezeko pakudya kulimwe palibe pamene vachita. Lusaka ndola dio college wene nikala kumuzi. Simupitamo yorodi simuiona, simuona msewu wa Lungu. So vantu vakusekani vantu vakamboti uyu akamba chani ali pa radio. So sometimes vinangu kambani kuti ivi vachita ivi sivanachiti. Dola imo mnaisi ya pa 23 kwacha. Dola lero nizingati niuzeni nikalipo kuuzani. Kaimwe simuviona kapena moderator wangakutandizeni. Dola ilipata ngati lero.
Okay, let's go ahead with your contribution.
So what it is I'm trying to put that man in his right side so that they should stop lying to the people of Zambia. They should be truthful so that people can trust them. Now, if they lie, how are the people of Zambia going to trust them? You get the point?
Okay, in conclusion.
Because the dollar today, as we are speaking, the dollar has lowered. We have got capital fertilizer company. It was not there during PF. We employed 45,000 teachers as UPND within 5 years. How many teachers did you employ in 10 years of the patriotic front? Okay, we remove for Mr. Sata. For 7 years of Mr. Lungu, how many teachers did you employ? 6,000. Can you compare 6,000 and 45,000?
All right,
we
in
employed
conclusion.
20,000 as I conclude, madam. You know, sometimes when you bring such people in for you give us chance so that we tell them so that they should stop lying.
All right, no
Because what
problem.
I'm
Next
saying
time
is
we'll
the
give
truth.
you more time. We'll give you more time, but for
Yes,
now,
so
please
let me
conclude.
conclude.
Yes.
So Muhabi Lungu izo nkani zamene mukamba apo nkani zopanda pachi asevenza vana askulu miwo allowance mumunachosa eve ababwezera apa pamene tikamba S3 ming'omba mine KCM you left it on a knife edge under liquidation today it is fully operation.
Thank you.
Bonza yanu wenye wanu vantu saza kakuvoterana Muhabi Lungu you should change for the better.
We appreciate your comments.
Thank
you
you
very
very
much. Okay, that's you can just respond to those particular callers.
Okay,
and
first
then
let me start with the last one.
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Namanda keeps on insisting that I'm lying to the Zambian people. I can say to you that of all the time that I've been discussing here, I have not said anything that can be characterized as a lie. I've looked at, you asked me a question about how the UPND has done. And from the very beginning, I didn't go into social cash transfer and so on for a reason, and I'll tell you the reason. I went to cost of living. You cannot deny, with whatever else that Mr. Namanda is mentioning here, that the food basket for a family of 5 is now 12,000 something. 5 years ago, it was 8,000. Okay, the wages of the ordinary citizens over the last 5 years has not kept pace with the with the cost of prices, and that the general standard of people's lives has declined. That is the basis of what I was saying here when we talked about restructuring of the debt. Again, it was not a lie. I merely assessed it. So now let me deal with the issue just quickly of social cash transfer, free education, Osaka dual carriageway. One of the reasons for me I don't give them chongaling marks on these issues is that none of these programs are programs which the UPND started from scratch and said they found it. None of them. The social cash transfer was started in 2003. And since 2003, there has been a gradual upscaling of the social cash transfer by each administration that has come. We might give them a kudo of giving it, raising the amount. And as I've said, there is an explanation for that. One of those explanations is the fact that there was a chunk of money which in the PF administration they were paying servicing the debt, and the UPND have not been servicing the debt. So some of that money they have channeled to some of these programs, such as free education, etc., etc. Free education. You know, the first time free education was actually enacted in this country was in 1962. In 1962, free education. I was educated freely. HH has boasted about he himself benefited from the Kaunda administration free education. Free education has been a part of our education policy since 1962. Now, there was a short period of time, okay, that there was an amalgamation to include a 200 kwacha in terms of parents contributing, starting with the MMD, then under Chilua. But when Mwanawasa came, he took it back to free education, and even Arabi. The PF made some adjustment in order to reflect the circumstances of the conditions now. Now, we can give them kudos for withdrawing that 200, but the way the UPND portrayed is as if this is the first time in the history of Zambia there's been free education, which is not true. The Lusaka and Dola Due Carriageway, as you know, it was a project that was started by the PF, okay, in terms of the specs, in terms of the study, and it was an idea which was going to be completed. They took it over and whatever. So some of these issues for me, I have tended not to go to them strictly because I think that they are not novel. You know, they are not new, bright idea that, oh, Esther has come up with a new idea. So, Mr. Namanda, please, it is unfair for you to accuse me of lying when I've not been lying. I've just been making an assessment, and I think that your president has failed. Let me skip Mr. Manda and come to him last. There was an issue from Mr. Mukosa. Okay? First of all, again, he also talked about me lying. And explaining a number of given. Let me say this to Mr. Mkos. You know, one of the difficulties that we have in this country is that we politicians are speaking to each other. And we rarely are speaking to independence. The question that Paul asked me, I think one of the last questions that Paul asked me was, what will you say to independents of why they should vote for Brian Mulwey? And for me, when I speak on programs like this, I am not speaking to Mr. Mukosa or Mr. Namanda because I already know what their position is. No matter what I say, it will not change their position. I try to speak to the independents who are trying to make a decision about who to vote for. And definitely Mr. Mukosa and Mr. Namanda are not independents. They've already made up their minds. I know Mr. Mukosa well. The house that I live in today, he was one of my builders. That is how well I know Mr. Mukosa. You know,
Okay.
Yeah, and so on. And his position regarding UPND has always been the same. Sometimes there would be about 7 builders there, and he would be arguing with all the 6 against alone. So he's not an independent person, and I respect him for that. But for him to say that I was lying, I think is unfortunate. Let me just look at one of. He says every government, according to him, has given rebates to mining. This is very important. Look, the second National Development Plan, you can go look it up if you want, okay? was the plant which built majority of the infrastructure that we still have in this country, meaning the road, the greatest road, which used to go just 17 kilometers from the roundabout there in 1969, the Great North Road, the University of Zambia, which was built in 1960 with the help of Israeli, and so many of the major infrastructure in this country were built through the Second National Development Plan of UNIP. And that Second National Development Plan, at the time, the minister was Alexander Chikwanda, who was the Minister of Finance at that time. And the bulk of the financing of the Second National Development Planning came from windfall tax revenue from the mining sector. Okay. Secondly,
as you conclude,
but because I want for Mr. Mukosa and other, because he's trying to well, let me not use the same language. He's trying to be disingenuous to the independents about that every government has given rebates to the mining. It is not true. There have been periods where governments have collected quite a number of revenue from the mining sector. When I was at the Ministry of Finance, no, I was not at the time, when I was at ZDA, the Zambia Development Agency, I was in charge at one point for foreign directing, for investment promotion. I was a promoter of investment promotion. I know that we had some rebates for foreign direct investment, but among those rebates was a program that was designed to ensure that foreign direct investment partner with the local businesses that were doing well, which were classified as middle to large businesses owned by Zambia. And we went throughout the country trying to pair them so that they could learn from the managerial skills and could maybe access greater financing to do a program which I've been saying that we, the technocrats, have recommended and Munduvile has done. But even more importantly, at the time I was at ZDA, the Minister of Finance at that time was none other than Dr. Mstumbe Kumsokotwan. And during Manawasa's administration. And at that time, there was a policy of windfall tax. And the government of the Republic of Zambia during that time, and it's not a long time ago, earned an enormous amount of revenue, okay, from the mining taxes, okay, because of the windfall. And you know what impact it had? You know what impact it had? By the time we get to 2011, the exchange rate, the Zambian exchange rate to the dollar was $5 to 1. Okay, that was, it is not a long time ago. So he's talking about 2017. I am saying to him that governments throughout the world try to run a fiscal policy for which taxation ensures that you get an acceptable amount of domestic revenue from all of the business concerns, particularly the big ones, that it affects domestic revenue and that it affects your investment structure. So to suggest that every government just gives is not correct.
All right. And that is the conclusion.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Muhabi Lungu, obviously Tonse Pamosi Alliance Deputy Presidential Campaign Coordinator, joining us on the Capital Breakfast. We truly understand and know that we could have gone on and on. Yes, but obviously we truly appreciate you for making your time, and thank you for highlighting everything around this conversation. We'll definitely invite you over next time so that we can get more, hopefully before the
election.
the election.
No, I'll be back. Thank you very much for inviting me. Please, to all of these independents, vote for Brian Munduvile and Makebi Zulu. You will not regret it. As Mukosa says, Munduvile and Brian and the Makebi have never been presidents of this republic before. Sometimes a person can make all the promises in the world like HS does. Then when you get into government, you fail to achieve. The only way you discover whether someone has got the capacity to govern or not is to give him the opportunity to be.
All right. So,
Mr. Lungu, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right. This has been Esther and Paul on The Breakfast Show. Catch us tomorrow, same time, same place. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.